I never expected a billionaire to change my life when I saw him watching my daughter dance. I will never forget that day. The air was thick with anticipation, a blank canvas waiting for a masterpiece. My heart raced, each beat echoing in my chest, as I watched Clara twirl on the stage. Her little tutu sparkled under the harsh lights like 1,000 tiny stars, and her laughter filled the room pure, unfiltered joy. But then, in the shadows, I saw him. Tall and enigmatic, his presence cut through the chaos like a beacon. Dark hair, a sharp suit that whispered wealth, yet his gaze was heavy, rooted in something deeper. It was unsettling, and captivating. Who was this man? What was he doing here? The audience was a blur, murmurs of appreciation and applause warming the air. Yet nothing mattered but him and Clara. He seemed entranced, as if he was witnessing a miracle unfolding in front of him. I could feel the tension coil within me, an electric charge. My hands trembled slightly as I clutched my purse tighter, fear and curiosity battling in my mind. As the performance ended, Clara ran to me, her eyes sparkling, and a huge grin plastered on her face. "Did you see me, Mommy? Did you see me shine?" I hugged her tightly, the scent of her bubblegum hairspray wrapping around me. But I couldn't shake the feeling of those eyes still on us. Every laugh, every clap felt distant. The billionaire had shifted something inside me, igniting a worry that something was about to change. The applause faded, and as we stepped off the stage, I dared a glance over my shoulder. He was gone. Just like that, vanished into thin air. A chill ran down my spine. How could someone so magnetic just disappear? I held my daughter's hand tightly, questions bubbling in my chest. Who was he? Why was he here? And what did he want? The answers loomed over me like a storm cloud, ready to burst. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days that followed Clara's performance unfolded like pages torn from a diary, a mix of mundane routines intermingled with an unsettling restlessness that gripped me. Each morning, I would watch her bounce out of bed, her dreams clearly still laden with twirls and twinkling lights. It was a comfort to see her joy, yet my heart remained heavy with unanswered questions and unshakable fears. At the bakery near our apartment, where I often spent my mornings nursing cheap coffee while Clara devoured her favorite blueberry muffin, I began noticing small changes around me. The barista, fiery-haired girl with a kind smile, seemed to linger longer at our table, her conversations mixing lightness with a sense of urgency as she mentioned the importance of chasing dreams. Her words pierced the fog of my uncertainty, yet I found it hard to believe I deserved to think of dreams at all, especially as I grasped for stability in our fragile world. "Mommy, can we sign up for that ballet class?" Clara chirped one day, flipping through a flyer she had seen plastered on the community board. My heart sank at the cost. It wasn't just the money, it was a reminder of how limited our options were. "Maybe when I find a better job," I replied, trying to fill my voice with hope. She frowned, and I felt the weight of my response crush the air between us. As if sensing my struggle, the barista appeared, slipping a small stack of flyers into her hand. "This studio offers scholarships for talented kids, Clara," she said, her eyes sparkling. "You should definitely audition." Clara's face lit up with anticipation, and for a moment, I felt a breath of relief. Maybe Grace could still find a way into our lives, but as nights fell and shadows lurked within our cramped apartment, those fleeting moments of hope felt like fragile threads struggling against a harsh wind. I couldn't shake the memories of the billionaire, his probing eyes, as if he could read between my lines of worry. Life took another turn when I received a letter one afternoon. The envelope was thick, with elegant script that made my fingers tremble. My heart raced as I recognized the insignia. It belonged to the very foundation that had funded Clara's preliminary auditions in the past. With shaky breaths, I tore it open, and a chill skated down my back as I read the words, "We are pleased to invite your daughter, Clara, to our summer dance program. Enclosed is a full scholarship." Hope flooded my senses, warming me from within. At that moment, I imagined Clara, her joy magnified, leaping across stages as our dreams began entwining. But alongside the pulse of excitement, fear gnawed at my insides. What was the foundation's connection to the mysterious billionaire? Just when I thought the tides might be shifting in our favor, I received a different kind of shock. The barista leaned down one morning, her voice barely above a whisper. "You need to be careful. I overheard someone talking about a wealthy patron interested in kids' programs at this dance studio. They said he's involved in choosing who gets scholarships, and he's been eyeing a certain girl." Her eyes widened, and my skin broke out in goosebumps. Could it be the same man who had watched Clara dance? My heart thundered as dread settled in the pit of my stomach. What did it mean if he was involved in our lives now? Would his presence introduce danger or opportunity? As days morphed into restless nights, I found myself tossing and turning, visions of those piercing eyes surfacing in the blackness. The impending summer program brought both excitement and a lingering apprehension. I wanted to protect Clara from the world's visions of grandeur, yet I could not fight the urge to nurture her dreams. And then came the night of the community gathering, an event where parents mingled and local businesses showcased opportunities. Standing near the punch bowl, I felt a hand on my shoulder. When I turned, it was him, the billionaire. His presence felt electric and paralyzing, a storm pressing down upon me. "About your daughter," he began, his voice deep and velvety. "I wanted to discuss her future. It's quite remarkable, isn't it?" He leaned in, and I felt heat rise to my cheeks. The world around us blurred, and in that moment, everything felt heavy with unspoken danger and possibility. That I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came. My mind raced as I grappled with whether he truly cared for Clara or had his own intentions hidden in the shadows. The crowd moved past us, laughter and chatter washing over us, yet all I could hear was my heart pounding in my ears. As he stepped closer, his eyes fierce with intensity, the ground beneath my feet shifted. I needed an answer, strength to shield Clara from whatever this man might bring into our lives. I could feel the weight of uncertainty bearing down, urging me to confront the truth. "Who are you, really?" I finally murmured, the question lodged in my throat like a bitter pill. The words slipped out, raw and untamed, mingling with the vibrant sounds of the gathering, creating a cacophony of tension. His expression twisted, half surprise, half something like concern, but just as quickly, a mask slipped over his features, unreadable yet daunting. "That I am someone who can change your daughter's life," he said, and for once, his smile didn't reach his eyes. My heart stumbled, teetering between opportunity and fear, caught in a web of desire and self-protection. The night stretched on around us, and I realized this was only the beginning. The kaleidoscope of emotions twisted through me like a storm, rage and fear battling against a whiff of opportunity as I stared into the billionaire's unreadable eyes. This couldn't just be about making Clara happy anymore. It felt like a portal had opened, revealing paths I was terrified to tread. "Change her life?" My voice sharpened, a mix of indignation and protective instinct bubbling forth. "At what cost?" He held my gaze unwaveringly, a fierce energy crackling in the air between us. "You misunderstand," he said slowly, "I'm not looking to take anything away from you. I want to help." The laughter and chatter around us faded into a muffled background hum. I could see the slight crease of concern on his forehead, but the stark line of ambition was etched across his jaw. Something honest flickered inside him, yet I knew better than to take that at face value. "Help?" I snorted, disbelief pouring from my lips. "All I see is a rich man swooping in to salvage a poor girl's dreams. Do you know her, even?" I couldn't help it, the protective force within me surged. "Have you truly watched her dance, or are you just looking to tick a box on your philanthropic ledger?" the corner of his mouth quirked into something that might have been amusement, but it did little to ease the tension pooling in my stomach. "I've seen her passion," he replied, his tone tempered. "And believe me, it's real. But I'm not just a wealthy patron seeking to make a spectacle of her life. I want to provide her with opportunity." "Why?" I asked, my voice cracking under the weight of my suspicion. He hesitated, as if weighing his words delicately. "Because I see something in her I didn't have. Talent that deserves an arena stage, more than just a daydream. I want to give her access to the world of dance, to take her to heights she never imagined she could reach." The words danced around me, tantalizing yet inappropriate, like mist on a summer lake. And yet, amidst my anger, a flicker of hope bubbled beneath the surface, teasing me, whispering that maybe Clara could have more than this cramped life, more than this uncertainty. But what was this hope, at what price? I shook my head, focused on the present. "You haven't even spoken to her. She can't just be a project you've taken on." "You're right," he admitted, a flicker of vulnerability surfacing in his eyes. "I want to meet her. Talk to her. I want her to choose this path if she wishes, not to be manipulated into it." Whether or not his words were genuine mattered not in that moment. Emotions surged in me, vying for control, as I realized the stakes had been raised higher than I anticipated. What if he was right? What if this was Clara's chance, nestled in the heart of the chaos? I caught my breath, attempting to refocus. And what about me? What about my role in all this? He stepped closer, his gaze steadying me. "You'll always have a role. But sometimes, a parent has to look out for their child's future beyond their own fears." My throat tightened as I absorbed his words, a tidal wave of conflicting feelings crashing over me. Was he suggesting that my fears were unwarranted, misguided? The hurtling chaos of events hit deeper. Clara relied on me for the foundation of her dreams, but what if I was building them on shaky ground? The event wound on, but my mind floated elsewhere, fusing possibilities with my ongoing protectiveness. I could hear Clara's laughter echoing in my ears, bright and unguarded like sunlight shining through a dense thicket. I envisioned her practicing in the studio, each ply, each arabesque, crafted with newfound freedom. I was still deliberating when I felt a gentle tug at my sleeve. Clara stood there, with a flower crown atop her head from the gather's craft table, wearing an exuberant smile that lit up my heart. "Did I miss something?" she asked, innocent curiosity reflecting in her wide eyes. "No, sweetie." I bit my lip, forcing a smile that felt harder to project as the billionaire still lingered. "Just talking to someone about dance. Could I dance again?" she burst out, excitement wounding my heart anew. "Mommy, I want to be a ballerina. Please." The vulnerable space within me, already frayed by the adult pressures of our life, began to unravel at the seams. This was no longer just an adult decision, it was a moment of clarity reflecting Clara's simple yet fervent heart. The billionaire crouched down, a gracious smile pinched between his features. "Your daughter is truly gifted. Whoever helps you, I hope you'll feel secure in that help." "Mom, can you please?" Clara bubbled, completely unaware of the discord that had just transpired. The billionaire looked up at me, those ferocious eyes dancing dangerously between hope and something akin to desperation. "Let her audition," he said, his voice low. "It starts with a choice." My breath hitched, a thousand thoughts colliding. Should I risk it? Trust a man I barely knew with my child's future? Was it a leap of faith or a precursor to disaster, Mom? Clara tugged on my sleeve again, a cascade of flowers in her arms, green and vivid, a little girl who believed in magic as she stood on the precipice of her dreams. "Okay," I breathed, looking down at her glowing face, feeling the weight of my own fears shift ever so slightly. The decision felt like both a release and an act of surrender. "You can audition." But even as I felt the tide of change rushing in, a chill dampened the warmth radiating from Clara's excited laughter. It was then that the flicker of doubt ignited, and I realized that somewhere in the shadows of our future, the billionaire would loom overhead, and each step my daughter took could unravel more than just dreams. That night, a letter slipped through our door nondescript. its crispness stark against the worn wooden floor. I opened it, and a jolt shot through me as I read the signature at the bottom: "Your daughter's potential is boundless. But remember, all gifts come with unseen strings." My heart stuttered, the weight of unknown futures crashing down around me, leaving me breathless. What had I just walked into? All my protective instincts flared, yet the world kept spinning, and I recognized I may have just invited a storm into our lives. The days following Clara's audition were a blur of anxious anticipation, my heart a pendulum swinging between hope and dread. The letter loomed over me, a ghost I couldn't shake off. Unseen strings echoed endlessly in my thoughts, taunting me with implications I couldn't decipher. The casual excitement that Clara embodied clashed violently with my protective instincts, each twirl and pirouette a reminder of how ripe the ground was for something sinister to take root. As she practiced with rapturous joy in our small living room, the melodies of Chopin ricocheting off the walls, I found solace in her happiness even as my mind churned. Each day at dawn, I watched Clara stretch and leap, her body an embodiment of dreams and innocence. It hurt to admit to myself that I wasn't just concerned for her, I was terrified of what my choices might cost. Fast forwarding through the next few weeks, Clara seemed unaffected by the burden of uncertainty that hung over me like a storm cloud. She dazzled in her auditions, her passion effortlessly shining brighter than the harsh studio lights. I caught snippets of conversation amongst the other parents, whispers of Clara's talent, of the attention she was garnering. A part of me swelled with pride, yet another part of me tensed. What were they seeing that I could not? The evening of the recital drew near, and Clara was aglow with excitement. "I'm going to dance like a real ballerina, Mommy," she declared, her small arms raised in flare. My heart constricted. These moments were bittersweet. Each time she radiated joy, I felt an overwhelming need to shield her from the world's sharp edges. As we prepared for the event, I sensed a shift in Clara. The innocence that had always enveloped her began to fade, replaced by a glimmer of awareness. When she glanced up at me, her eyes searching, it was as if she could feel my doubts encroaching. "Are you proud of me?" Her voice was a tentative whisper, carrying the weight of expectation, hers and mine, more than you know. I replied, forcing my smile to reach my eyes, wishing desperately she could feel my affection envelop her like a warm embrace. To be her anchor, I needed to be strong. The day of the performance arrived, and the theater buzzed with an electric energy. The air thick with ambition greeted us at the grand entrance, and I clutched Clara's hand, squeezing it to ground us both. As we entered the auditorium, the seats filled to the brim, a pang of loss hit me. Clara belonged here. She could sparkle brightly, yet I couldn't help but feel a looming presence of the unknown, waiting to pounce. After hours of waiting, finally it was Clara's turn to grace the stage. The curtains parted, revealing a wash of bright lights and eager faces staring back, all breath caught in collective expectation. As Clara stepped forward, I felt my heart engulfed by a mixture of pride and fear. She took her place center stage, the world narrowing down to just her, every crooked line of my worry echoing in my chest. She danced with a sincerity that lit up the entire room, each movement punctuated with grace and confidence that belied her youth. I lost myself in her story, lost in the poetry of her body, and for a fleeting moment, I allowed myself to believe in glimmers of promise and hope. This was her moment, my fears momentarily quelled, but nestled among the applause, I felt a presence that pulled me from the reverie. I scanned the audience, heart racing, and my pulse quickened. At the edge, seated prominently, the billionaire watched, his gaze fixed to Clara, but there was something else there, something unsettling. Clara finished her performance to a thunderous ovation. As the curtains fell, she rushed into my arms, exuding warmth and triumph, as if she had crossed a threshold to a new realm. "Did you see me, Mommy? Did you see?" Her eyes sparkled, but I saw something lurking beneath her celebration, an inkling of understanding, of adult-like awareness. "Yes, my love. You were magnificent," I said, smiling through the growing unease, the shadows creeping back. As my heart swelled, the applause faded, but my admiration turned to horror when I spotted the letter on my seat. A nonchalant reminder, its edges tattered with careless handling, the words unseen strings beckoning with new urgency. It was as if it materialized specifically to intercept my joy. Before I could process my growing apprehension, someone brushed past me, a whirlwind of sophistication and allure cloaked in an air of danger. It was the billionaire, closeted in charm, yet something sharper lingered like a warning. "Congratulations," he said, a smile playing on his lips, but his eyes spoke a different language. A cryptic challenge lingered there, an acknowledgement of some secret only we shared. "Thank you," I replied, unfurling my defenses as Clara danced around us, spinning in exhilaration. "Are you ready for what comes next?" he asked, tilting his head ever so slightly, a mask of congeniality sliding into something darker, something more calculating. That I wanted to ask what that meant, where Clara truly stood in all this, but before I could open my mouth, Clara returned, all innocence and exuberance. "Did you see me, mister? Did you?" The billionaire knelt down, his smile only deepening, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I had stepped into a an irresistible lure with consequences larger than I could fathom. "Of course I did, Clara. You were incredible. Remember, every choice you make opens another door." Something shifted in him as he spoke, revealing more than just interest, a promise, cloaked in intrigue. I held my breath as I watched the words weave around Clara, their influence like spindly tendrils reaching for her. And as Clara twirled between us, something snapped within me. It struck me then this was not just an audition. This was the beginning of an odyssey, tangled with opportunities and unknown dangers. It was a kaleidoscope, and we had only scratched the surface. That thrum of unease surged again. I was prepared for the dance, but what would be the price of the music? As Clara's laughter floated through the air, I couldn't help but wonder if I had sealed our fates into a rhythm that would bind or break us. The weeks following Clara's performance passed in a haze, the excitement of her triumph shadowed by an undercurrent of dread that slithered into my daily life. The applause still rang in my ears, but the gilded echo dulled as stark reality crept back in. Clara was capturing the attention of an industry that thrived on ambition, and I felt the creeping chill of uncertainty every time the billionaire's name flickered across our lives. "Mommy, can we practice together?" Clara's sweet voice broke through my spiraling thoughts one afternoon. Despite my apprehensions, I wanted to nurture her love. I swallowed down my worries and joined her in the living room, filling the space with Chopin once more. Each note stole a piece of my heart, weaving a delicate web of shared dreams. Yet, as I watched her perfect pirouettes, my mind couldn't rest. What was the cost of this dream? The whispers of the other parents still echoed less about Clara's talent and more about her potential. Their eyes glimmered with envy, abating only when they swept over me, without so much as a polite nod, as if I were merely an extension of her. I felt invisible, and the weight of transparency shifted the air around us. That evening, a text pinged on my phone, drawing my gaze away from Clara's fluid movements. It was from a number I didn't recognize, the message brief yet alarming: "I know you're worried. Meet me." There was no signature, just a digital echo of a threat that resonated all too closely. My breath caught, pulsing panic through me. Who could it be? I couldn't entertain the thought that it might be someone linked to the billionaire, someone drawn to the seed of fear germinating in the back of my mind. "Mommy?" Clara's call drew me back. She stood poised, a delicate figure against the backdrop of childhood bliss that I desperately wanted to shield her from. "Are you okay?" I forced a smile. "Of course, sweet pea. Just a little tired. Let's dance together." Clara insisted, her excitement unabated. So, we twirled and leaped, our connection strengthening in the rhythm of our movements. For those moments, I was able to push aside my fears, lost in the purity of her laughter. Just as we reached a crescendo, the doorbell rang, causing Clara to pause mid-turn with exaggerated surprise. My heart jumped, panic unraveling the fabric of my momentary peace. I glanced at the clock. It was late for visitors. "Stay here," I instructed Clara, walking toward the door, my instincts readying themselves for a confrontation. As I slowly opened it, my breath hitched. "Good evening." The billionaire stood before me, the polished charm radiating off his figure like a prism. I apologize for the intrusion, may I? His eyes were as enigmatic as I remembered, leaving me grappling with an unsettling mix of attraction and apprehension. Clara's just I started, wanting to keep our world away from his complex web. Oh, I know. I heard she's blossoming beautifully, he interjected, stepping into the threshold without waiting for an invitation. I closed the door firmly, as if it could somehow protect us from his magnetic aura. As he made his way into the room, I felt a palpable tension crackling between us over Clara, who had been drawn by the energy and now danced less fluidly, curious yet wary. Amazing how passion can light up a room, isn't it? He said, glancing around, a predatory gleam in his eyes. Clara beamed. Do you want to watch me dance again? Of course. But first, I must ask, how are you enjoying this whole ordeal? He pressed, his gaze locking onto mine. Her innocent exuberance filled the room, but I felt my resolve straining against the reality of our situation. This man seemed to harbor whispers that could be delightful or dangerous, and I couldn't comprehend which at that moment would steer our lives. Clara, why don't you show him your best move? I suggested, trying to detach myself from the chilling weight of his questions. Okay. Clara exclaimed, diving into a string of leaps and twirls, her joy radiating like sunlight breaking through dark clouds, momentarily blinding me in its brilliance. I focused on her, desperately pushing aside my wariness. The billionaire clapped along, but then I felt his attention shift back to me again, an insidious intensity coiling between us. You know, in this world, there are always unseen strings, he murmured, the words a whisper infused with meaning I didn't fully grasp. That I could hear Clara humming a tune beneath her breath as she danced, blissfully unaware of the threat underlying our interaction. She's special, he continued, and it wouldn't be wise to let her leave this stage without protection. Protection? I echoed, terse frustration tightening my words. What do you mean? He stepped closer, lowering his voice conspiratorially. It means there are influences that can both nurture her talent and attempt to exploit it. You'd need to be careful, or one day you might wake up wishing you'd taken a different path. That I felt icy fingers slide down my spine. He was playing with fire, but I refused to allow him to scare me. Clara's pursued her dreams, and I intend to support her however I can, I said, voice resolute, even as my heart fluttered with uncertainty. In that case, I wouldn't make any hasty decisions about the company she keeps. Some opportunities come at a cost. I wanted to scream, to unleash the tidal wave of anxiety pooling within me. Instead, I swallowed down the frustration and focused on Clara, her spirited laughter eclipsing the ominous nature of his words. With each twirl, she signified everything I held dear. As the billionaire turned to Clara, his demeanor softened, an unsettling juxtaposition against the threat tonight still lingered. Remember what I said, Clara. Dance is but the first step to something larger. The comment left a bitter aftertaste, but I masked my concern under a thin veneer of politeness. The moment hung thick with unspoken tensions when he finally took his leave, a shadow pooling in the room where once only light danced. Clara rushed to me, blissfully oblivious to the shifting tides of our reality. Did you see me, Mommy? Her eyes sparkled, brimming with hope. Always, sweet pea, always, I whispered, my heart torn. But as the door clicked shut, sealing him outside, the promise of his words echoed within the strings of worry wound tighter around us, and I feared the hidden truths they carried. In this world of dance and dreams, was I awakening a monster? Or were we dance partners navigating a rhythm destined to break us apart? With each tremulous breath, I anticipated what strings the next day would pull, the weight of uncertainty drifting like a visible ghost, an unseen audience ready to watch our story unfold. The following days felt like a series of delicate balancing acts. Each morning, I would stand at the threshold of our lives, straddling the bright possibility Clara infused into our everyday, and the darkening shadow cast by the billionaire's cryptic warnings. As Clara bounded into the kitchen one bright morning with her usual enthusiasm, I was seized by the weight of the choices before me. Can we have pancakes today, Mommy? She pleaded, a smile lighting her face like the early morning sun. I nodded, forcing myself to shake off the lingering specter of doubt. Of course, sweet pea. As I whisked the batter, I stole a glance out the window. Neighborhood kids played in the cool autumn air, laughter weaving intricate patterns of innocence that contrasted sharply with my own turmoil. Moments of tranquility like this were becoming increasingly rare. As the pancakes cooked, I recalled the billionaire's words, "Protect her." A reminder laced with foreboding that gripped me when I least expected it. Could I carve a path toward Clara's dreams while defending her from the very world that sought to confine her? "Look, Mommy!" Clara squealed, her joyful shout pulling me to the present. I turned to see her donning her ballet costume, expertly tying a ribbon in her hair. "I'm ready for my lessons, all right, let's finish breakfast, and then I'll help you prepare," I replied with a smile that felt dangerously brittle. After breakfast, we headed to Clara's ballet class. The familiar ballet studio with its mirrored walls and bright wood floors felt like a sanctuary. Inside, I watched as her reflection danced in perfect synchrony, a beautiful amalgamation of fragile aspirations and ferocious talent. But as I sat in my usual seat, a creeping disquiet gnawed at me. I wasn't just a mother observing her daughter's growth. I felt as though I was becoming an unwitting player in a much larger game, one I hadn't yet fully grasped. When Clara's class ended, one of the other mothers approached. "Isn't she just the sweetest thing?" she asked, her eyes warm. "You must be so proud." I nodded, grateful for the simple exchange. It was a brief moment of connection, a respite from the shadows that lurked. Yet as she walked away, I noticed the curious sideways glances from the other parents, murmuring under their breath. Just then, Clara ran to me, her exuberance breaking through like sunlight on a rainy day. "We're going to have a special showcase next month," she exclaimed, eyes sparkling with joy. "Everyone will get to see us dance." I forced my heart to swell with pride, even though worry tethered itself to the upcoming performance. "That sounds wonderful, Clara. I can't wait to see you shine," I said, enveloping her in a warm embrace, my worry momentarily fading in the face of her innocent dreams. But the moment I stepped outside the studio into the bustling city, a sinking feeling replaced any fleeting sense of joy. The city thrummed with energy, yet I felt isolated within the clamoring crowd. Suddenly, my phone buzzed, startling me. It was another message from the unknown number. "You need to be careful. Someone knows about her talent, and they won't treat her kindly." My heart raced as a familiar chill coursed through me. Who was this person? I couldn't divulge my fears to Clara. Her light was the only thing keeping my demons at bay. I couldn't let her see any of my turmoil. Hadn't the billionaire himself warned about the risk of outside influences? Which of the other parents might have ulterior motives? Returning home, all I sought was comfort in Clara's laughter. I joined her on the living room floor, where she twirled and danced, and I mirrored her, surrendering to the whims of grace that were so far from the stifling thoughts threatening to engulf me. As night fell, an impulse overcame me. I had to confront the source of this unease. I took out my phone, fingers trembling as I drafted a message to the unknown number. "Who are you, and what do you know about Clara?" Before I could hesitate, I hit send, a ripple of anxiety coursing through me. I was unprepared for the response that blinked back at me under the dim light of my phone. "You'll find out soon enough. The game has only just begun." Raw shock tightened my chest, and I felt as if I had slipped beneath the surface of a black, swirling sea. My breath turned shallow as I pondered the implications of that ominous message. What game? What price was my sweet girl going to pay for the world she was stepping into? A sudden sound from Clara's room pulled me back from the precipice of panic. I dashed down the hallway, heart racing, a mother's instinct ignited as I flung open the door. Clara lay in bed, clutching her stuffed rabbit, sound asleep, her dreams unfettered by the darkness around us, a stark contrast to the chaos that swirled in my mind. As I tucked her in, I kissed her forehead, quietly promising myself that I would protect her from whatever threat was looming on the horizon. But the weight of the unknown loomed larger than ever, the wisdom I sought crumbling beneath the enormity of my fears, and as I turned off the light, a shudder slipped through Maya's sickening sense of inevitability. An unexpected revelation pierced the stillness. The closer Clara got to her dreams, the more perilous our journey would become. The strings began to tangle, and I feared what new entanglements awaited us in the future, knowing that the choices I would make next could ultimately carve our path into darkness. The sun rose high the next day, casting long shadows into our small kitchen, light filtering through in a way that felt both hopeful and ominous. As Clara bounded into the room, her enthusiasm was boundless, yet my heart carried the lingering weight of unfinished business, both with the message from the unknown assailant and the haunting words of the billionaire echoing in my mind. "Can we have waffles this morning?" Clara chirped, eyes bright and animated, her innocence a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing within me. "Sure, sweetheart," I replied, trying my best to maintain a facade of normalcy. As I cooked, the rhythmic sound of the waffle iron filled the silence, yet it couldn't drown out the storm within my chest. Each beep signified a moment passing, but the unease gnawed deeper. Once breakfast was devoured, and Clara had bounced off to her toys, I couldn't shake the sense that time was not on our side. I pulled out my laptop, scrolling through online forums dedicated to child prodigies and the challenges they faced. With every article I read, the darker side of ambition revealed itself, a world riddled with envy, exploitation, and competition cloaked in smiles. And through it all, I could see Clara's face, her laughter filling the air like music, blissfully unaware of the volatile path her talent could unwittingly lead her down. My gut twisted with the realization that her dreams might pull her away from the safety of our simple life and thrust her into the realm that feared her brilliance. Determined to shield her, I decided to reach out to the only person I believed might offer insight, the enigmatic billionaire himself. With trembling fingers, I typed an email that ended with my plea for guidance. It felt desperate, exposing the depths of my uncertainty. Days passed like fragile petals in the wind. Clara busied herself with rehearsing for her upcoming showcase, while I was lost in a labyrinth of dark considerations. Every evening, as I tucked Clara into bed, would steal a lingering glance at her asleep, heart full but burdened with trepidation. But the days turned into a week, and I began to lose hope that he would respond. A small flicker within me realized that perhaps I was grasping at straws, chasing down the impossible. Just as the sense of despair began to solidify, a notification chimed from my phone. With an urgency that shocked me, I opened the email. "Meet me at the cafe on 1st Street at noon. We need to discuss Clara." I felt a rush of conflicting emotions, relief, anxiety, and an overwhelming dread of what awaited. Then, without realizing the passing time, I found myself at that very cafe hours later, waiting on shaky legs. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee surrounded me as I nervously fidgeted with my hands on the table, knowing full well that from this moment onward, everything could change. I didn't know what I was expecting, whether a reassuring shoulder or a looming threat. Finally, a shadow fell over me. A tall man exuding an intense presence stood before me, his expression inscrutable. "The billionaire." "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice smooth but edged with urgency. I motioned for him to sit, heart racing as we exchanged pleasantries that felt distant and floating, like wisps of smoke. "I received your email," he began, leaning in closer, studying me intently. "You're worried." "Very," I admitted, swallowing my hesitation. "People have been watching Claire at her ballet class, in the community. I just want to keep her safe. I know she has potential, but I feel like I need to protect her from everything. Children in her position attract attention, both good and ill," he countered, the gravity of his words wrapping around me. "What you don't know is that talent can also draw predators out, people who would exploit her passion and dreams. I won't let that happen." I stared at him, a storm of confusion in my heart. "But how can you stop it?" "You don't know who they are, that's where you're mistaken," he said, pulling out a thin envelope from his jacket. "I have sources. Information, even on those who lurk too close for comfort." He slid the envelope toward me. My hands trembled as I opened it, revealing a photograph of a man, the same face I had seen lurking around the ballet studio, a shadow moving at the edge of Clara's world. Anxiety flooded through me as I realized we were in deeper waters than I had imagined. "Why are you helping us?" I uttered the words almost involuntarily. His steel blue eyes pierced into mine, revealing both sincerity and a hint of something darker. "There are consequences, and you and your daughter becoming a part of this world doesn't just affect you. It affects me, too." A chill swept through me as the weight of his words settled. What did he mean? What secrets lay behind his intentions? Before I could voice another concern, he added sharply, "What you need to understand is the true cost of talent. It's something you can't comprehend until you're in too deep." Just as a sense of camaraderie began to form, the cafe door swung open, and I glanced back instinctively, my heart skipping at the sight of a familiar figure, the other mother from Clara's ballet class, a knowing look of alarm written across her face. The kind warmth she had shown me before vanished, replaced by a stern expression as she met my gaze. Instinctively, I leaned away from the billionaire, my heart racing as I tried to drown out the pounding drum in my chest. What connection did she have to this new peril? Were we truly safe at all, or had we only just begun to peel back the layers of danger obscured by the pursuit of dreams? The course of our lives hung precariously, and with one fleeting glance exchanged, I understood that everything I thought I knew was about to be turned utterly inside out. As the shadows swirled and tightened around us, I grasped Clara's hand tightly in my mind, vowing again to protect her from the encroaching storm. The game indeed had begun, and I feared the path ahead only led toward unimaginable challenges. The days that followed the cafe meeting blurred into a cacophony of anxiety and fragile hope. Clara remained blissfully unaware, twirling through her rehearsals with the kind of grace that made my heart swell and ache in equal measure. I watched her, scattered notes of joy intermingled with the grim melody of dread playing in my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing on the edge of an abyss, and each dance class pulled me closer to the precipice. That brief encounter with the billionaire reverberated through my thoughts. Each time I recalled the haunting words about talent and its perils, an insidious fear gripped me tighter. How could I possibly navigate a world so filled with treachery that I scarcely understood? Each day I arrived at the ballet studio early, lingering in the shadows, scanning the faces of parents and onlookers alike. The image of the man from the photograph haunted my thoughts, his presence a specter lurking in the corners of Clara's dance dream. I was alert, a wound-up spring ready to pounce at the slightest sign of danger. Every passing car, every fleeting shadow became a potential threat. Then one evening, as I waited in the parking lot after class, I noticed a silhouette beneath an old oak tree. A woman stood alone, her face obscured by the shadows. Something about her compelled me to approach. As I drew nearer, I heard her whispering softly, her words laced with fervor. "She's brilliant, you know, but brilliance can be blinding, for those who don't understand." My breath caught in my throat. The woman turned, revealing herself to be the mother from earlier, the one who had walked into the cafe that day. Her eyes, usually bright and serene, now shimmered with a mix of urgency and concern. "You need to be very careful," she warned, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why? What do you know?" I pressed, heart racing. "Who was that man?" She sighed, as if her heart were heavier than the words weighed upon her tongue. "They're watching, all of them. Unscrupulous agents, insiders, people looking to exploit giftings like Clara's. I've seen it happen before. Why didn't you say anything sooner?" I felt a surge of anger mingled with fear. "You could have helped me protect her." I told myself it wasn't my place, she admitted, tear glistening in her eyes. "But Clara is so exceptional. The kind of talent that beckons vultures, and you need to know. I fear there's more to those who stand closest to her. They may not have her best interests at heart." The words hung heavy between us, and in that moment something in her shifted. "I didn't realize how much I valued this until I saw you," she continued softly. "You're so dedicated, and she needs you now more than ever." I felt a swell of gratitude, despite the tension gnawing at my gut. A fleeting alliance formed in that shadowy parking lot, an agreement forged not just in concern, but in an understanding of the stakes. "Can we work together?" I want to ensure Clara's safety." The woman hesitated, fear etched across her face. "You may not want to accept what this path requires. It could come at a price, one I'm not sure you're ready to pay." Just then, Clara bounded over, a bright-eyed vision of joy, clutching her ballet shoes like trophies. "Mom! Look what I can do. I'm almost ready for the showcase." The moment shattered the weighty conversation like glass, and I forced a smile, turning as I scooped her up. But as I looked back to where the mother had stood, she was already gone, swallowed by the Shadowsa spectre, disappearing into the fabric of the night. In that fleeting instant, I felt so acutely the weight of my responsibility. Clara's future lay ahead of her, glorious and filled with promise, and yet all I could see were the looming shadows, lessons learned too late, and a deepening pit of concern ready to swallow us whole. The days crept closer to the showcase. With each passing rehearsal, Clara's delight was a bright flame against the encroaching murk. But the darker thoughts threatened to snuff it out, and I clung to the belief that maybe, just maybe, we would navigate this storm together. But as Clara's big night arrived, and the auditorium buzzed with excitement, I found myself standing at the entrance, dread creeping up my spine. There was something vital missing, something I hadn't anticipated. I scanned the room, remembering the photograph of that man, an uncertainty brewing in my gut. What if he slinked among the crowd tonight, eager to seize upon an opportunity to claim Clara's talent for himself? The thought set my heart racing, an alarm pulsing through my veins. Then, in that crowded space, I caught sight of a figure in the back, cloaked in a long dark coat. My heart plummeted as recognition sent a shiver shooting through me. It was him, the man from the photograph, watching intently. In that instant, I understood that our struggle for safety was only beginning, and there was no turning back. The ticking clock of our lives echoed louder than ever as I clutched Clara's hand, a desperate hold against the tide of uncertainty. Wrapping my arms tightly around her, I felt determination surge through me. I would face whatever came next. But at that very moment, my phone buzzed in my pocket, the screen illuminating a message that stopped my heart. "Protect her. They're closer than you think." And as I read those words, a cold dread washed over me. What had I gotten Clara into? What hidden dangers had begun trailing us like shadowy phantoms? The stakes rose with the lights dimming, and the curtain about to rise. As the spotlight dimmed and the whisper of anticipation filled the air, the auditorium transformed into a realm where dreams dared to shimmer and mysteries whispered beneath the hum of excitement. I gripped Clara's hand tightly, her small fingers warm against my palm, anchoring me amid the chaos swirling around. The darkness was closing in, both inside and outside, but for now, my focus was solely on her. Clara twirled, spinning in her leotard, her face a canvas painted with courage and delight. She was blissful, oblivious to the tension radiating from me, and I yearned to hold that joy like a fragile glass globe, untarnished by the threats looming just beyond our periphery. Yet, the dread was a heavy cloud hovering just overhead. The man, with his inscrutable expression, wedged himself into my thoughts, a reminder that our crumbling safety could collapse with a single misstep. The performance began, and each graceful move Clara made on stage was both a triumph and a fear-laden gift. Each pirouette was a declaration of innocence, each leap a heart-stopping prayer sent into the air, but deep down, the urgency festered. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was circling, hunting for a weakness. As the first act culminated in a vibrant crescendo, a wave of applause erupted, filling the space with warmth. Clara, glowing under the spotlight, took her final bow, and I could see how she glimmered under the affection and admiration from the crowd. But as her motherly cheer peaked, I felt the relentless tug of everything unsaid. Suddenly, through the raucous clapping, my phone buzzed again. Beneath the roar, I barely heard the message vibrating through me. "He's moving closer." My heart raced as I glanced back at the shadowy figure, now rising from his seat, a predator embroiled in the thrill of the hunt. That I stood frozen, a statue of dread as he pivoted, his gaze flickering over the audience as if searching, scanning for someone. The light cast elongated shadows across his face, his expression a mask that blurred between disinterest and intrigue. I was locked in a battle of observation, desperately trying to discern his intentions while simultaneously willing Clara to find her time in the spotlight. blissfully unaware of the darkness that loomed, but then, amidst the haze of my frantic thoughts, a gentle touch broke through my spiraling fears. A soft voice, sweet yet serious, cut through the tumult. "Hey, you look like you've seen a ghost." I turned to find Tanya, the charming woman from the front row, the only other parent I'd connected with since this began. She had approached me with a warm smile that exuded a camaraderie I hadn't realized I craved. "Have you seen the man behind us?" I whispered, glancing back cautiously, but he seemed to melt into the crowd as if he was never there. The fleeting nature of his presence made my stomach churn with uncertainty. Tanya's expression shifted, the cheerful aura dimming. "I thought I caught a glimpse." "He's been around. People are talking." "Talking?" I echoed, my heart racing at the thought of others noticing him too. "Rumors," she said, her brow knitting in concern. "People say he has connections, something about the talent pool and potential contracts. He's trying to recruit dancers. Young ones, mostly." The world around me blurred, and my vision narrowed in on Clara, who was preparing for the next act. Dancers swirled around her, and I felt an unsettled knot tie tighter in my chest. Is that what this is about? Taking advantage of their talent? Tanya's gaze dampened. If they don't understand what they're getting into, it could become a dangerous game. "What's his name?" "Do you know?" I shook my head, caught between the cascade of emotions crashing in on me. "No, I don't. But it feels like he's after Clara. I need to protect her." Before she could respond, Clara bounded toward us, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "Mom! Did you see me? The second act is about to start. I want to do the big leap this time." Her innocence sparkled, a resilient flame that momentarily dispelled the shadows around us. I forced a smile, but the weight of it clawed at my heart. "Of course I did, sweetheart. You were wonderful." As she returned to the stage, I leaned closer to Tanya, urgency sharpening my voice. "We have to keep an eye on her. I can't do this alone, and I have a feeling." My breath hitched. "I have a feeling he's going to make a move tonight." The next act began, with Clara ethereally twirling once again. Yet I was paralyzed by the impending dread, breath shallow as my relentless gaze tracked the man's whereabouts. Just then, my phone buzzed yet again, the sheer increase of anxiety tightening around me like a vice. My heart thundered in my chest as I opened the notification. "Look behind you." With a sinking feeling, I turned, every nerve in my body fraught with tension. And there he was, standing not far from the edge of the stage, watching us. But what shocked me the most was not just his presence, but the unreadable expression on his face, something that could only be described as knowing, as if he wove through layers of predation and something more sinister that went beyond the simple business of dance. Clara's leap drew ecstatic applause, yet as I stood there, frozen, the applause blurred into deafening silence, leaving only the beating of my heart echoing like whispers warning me to take action. Then, unexpectedly, the man waved. Subtly, a gesture both eerie and calculated, and in a moment arched by dread, I witnessed something shift behind him, a flash of familiar crimson hair, a striking figure sneaking into the crowd, our world becoming intertwined. The last person I ever expected to see, Clara's former dance instructor, her once beloved mentor, slipping into the shadows with an enigmatic look of intent. I swayed on the precipice of panic. Too many strings were entwining in a design of deceit. I had to unravel this before it ensnared all of us. But the clock was ticking, and the stakes were rising dangerously high. The showcase concluded with a final flourish, and Clara's radiant smile illuminated the stage as the applause thundered around her. Yet, amidst the triumph, my heart felt trapped within a vice of tension. The shadows of uncertainty had grown deeper, entangled by the connection between the man in the audience and Clara's former dance teacher, a woman who had once embodied all that was beautiful and nurturing in Clara's world. I knew I needed answers, and I needed them fast. As my pulse throbbed in time with the chaotic applause echoing in the auditorium, I turned back to Tanya, my expression fraught with urgency. "I need to find out what he wants and why she's here. We can't let Clara get pulled into this darkness." "Let's discuss it backstage," Tanya responded, her demeanor shifting as she scanned the crowd for prying eyes. I nodded, quickly slipping backstage as Clara took her final bow, the flood of backstage activity concealing my desperate navigation through the chaos. Once behind the curtain, I caught Clara bubbling with excitement. "Did you see me, Mommy? I did the big leap." Her innocence refreshed my spirit, but an undergrowth of dread lingered just beneath the surface as I pulled her close. "You were amazing, sweet pea. I'm so proud of you. Mommy, can I go get some ice cream with the other kids?" Clara beamed, unaware of my internal struggle poisoned by rising tensions. The carefree laughter of her peers spilled around, their joy untouched by the shadows that clung to my thoughts. "Of course, but wait for me," I replied, urgency overtaking my resolve and heightening my protectiveness. "I just need to talk to Ms. Martinez, okay?" Just as Clara dashed off, I saw Tanya lingering in the distance, watching the crowd. "Stay close, and don't wander too far," I called after Clara. A gentle nod from her was all I needed to breathe a little easier. But as I turned toward the direction of Ms. Martinez, I found the elegant former instructor standing there, fluttering through the space like a ghost among the moving shadows. Clara's mom, her voice curled around me, dripping with sweet familiarity yet dangerously foreign. "Congratulations. That was an impressive performance, thank you, but I need to ask you something," I replied, a sense of urgency crackling in the air between us. "What are you doing here?" She tilted her head, curiosity and something else dancing in her gaze. "Why, I've come to see my students flourish," she said lightly, but there was a gravity to her tone that sent chills spiraling through me. "But Clarash's exceptional. The kind of talent that draws attention. More than just accolades." "More than just accolades," I echoed, aware of the dark hints implicating her motivations. "I need to know if you're involved with him, the man in the audience. Ms. Martinez's eyes narrowed subtly, but she maintained a facade of ease. "He's been known to attract talented dancers. He looks for potential opportunity. But you must understand, Clara's talent requires nurturing that she cannot fully grasp. Talent can bring riches, but—" I didn't let her finish. "You don't mean to suggest that you're ushering her toward him? Is that what you've been doing all this time?" The words landed like icy daggers between us. Her composure wrestled with a shadow, and for one fleeting moment, the mask slipped. "It's not that simple. It's a world fraught with challenges and benefits. And Clara has the ability to transcend all of it. She should know what's waiting for her." "Benefits? Are you calling this man a benefactor?" I fired back, realizing the gravity of the unseen strings weaves tighter around us. "She's just a girl. She shouldn't be a part of that. Isn't that what every parent wants?" She countered, voice rising just above a whisper now, but the fight within her softened. "Don't you want her to make the right choices? To seize her potential? Not at the expense of her childhood?" I felt the heat of indignation rise up my throat. "I need her to have a real life, not one dictated by someone else's ambitions. I can open doors for her, guide her," she said, vulnerability creeping into her tone. "You must understand, it's a dog-eat-dog world out here. Ignoring those who could elevate her would be foolish." A noxious mix of fear and desperation bubbled over. "And what about the costs? The unseen dangers? Are we to trade her childhood for dreams she doesn't even fully understand?" Her eyes dimmed, and I saw something flicker. Was it regret? Shame? It vanished quickly, replaced by a calculating calm. "Trust me. Talent such as Clara's needs to be protected. There's always a price." As her cryptic warning echoed in the air, I felt the ground shift beneath me. Clara appeared again, her eyes wide, a bright smile on her face. "Let's go, Mommy. Ice cream." She tugged at my hand, her innocence reminding me of the beauty I fought to preserve amidst the chaos. "Okay, but stay close," I said, momentarily torn. Ms. Martinez observed the scene play out, and just before I turned away, she called out after me. Remember, in this world, you can't shield her from everything. Some lessons will have to be learned the hard way. The weight of her words hung between us like a guillotine, ready to fall. As I tumbled into Clara's jubilant world, the taste of ice cream bittersweet on my tongue, I realized that the showcase was merely the starting point for something that could unravel our lives entirely. The unspoken currency of her talent cut through me like glass, and I felt a dawning urgency. We had to gain control before it controlled us, yet, I couldn't escape the connection to the man who had lingered at the edges of our dreams. He was only the beginning of what lay ahead. And now, Clara was mine, to me daughter wrapped in beauty, but bound by strings unseen. The realization gnawed at me, we would need to face the darkness head-on. And we might just have to accept the challenges awaiting us if we were to preserve the light within her. Mommy? Can we go dance again tomorrow? Clara asked between bites, her eyes full of wild enchantment as the world sparkled around us untouched by darkness. Of course, dear, I replied, determination weaving into my voice. But always remember that the world outside can be deceiving. We have to protect what's beautiful. It was a promise I made to her and myself, a tether to guide us through whatever consequences awaited. And in that moment, amidst all the uncertainty, I believed I could find the strength to shield her through whatever battles lay in wait. Because while the strings tightened around us, would become a dancer of my own, ready to untangle the knots and weave a dance of resilience, both fierce and boundless. For Clara's future, the strength we would have to forge would defy the darkness ahead, and together, we would step beyond the confines of fear and into the light.